Welcome to the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeartRadio station. I'm your host, Roland. We have a good show planned for you today. Don't forget to stay tuned to Warriors Talk with my girl, Rochelle, at 6 p.m. Tonight, my guest is a community leader. She's also was a candidate for alderman in the 29th Ward and very instrumental in CTU Matters. She's also a representative of CORE. Please give a Drive at 5 welcome back to Zerlina Smith. Welcome back to the Drive.
Oh, thank you. And let me just correct you. I am a former member of CORE.
Oh, former member of CORE. Okay, my bad.
As a parent, I was a member of CORE.
And today you brought a special guest with you?
Yes. Hi, I'm Cherish, her daughter.
Oh, hi, Cherish. How are you?
I'm good.
So please give IntellectualRadio.com/iHeartRadio station an update since the last time you was on the Drive.
Oh, my God. The last time I was on the Drive, I believe Cherish was 8 years old, and now she's 14 and a student at Trinity High School in River Forest. And she was a public school student the last time I was on here at Salcedo Elementary School. Yes, It's been that long.
Wow. Okay. Cherish, give IntellectualRadio.com/iHeartRadio station your background, what you're doing in school and your studies.
Right now, we're learning about mental health. We're doing our obvious biology, our world history, and honestly, that's really it.
And your sports.
Oh, yeah, of course, my tennis, cheer, simple things.
And what language will you be taking?
Oh, French.
French. You know a little bit?
Next block.
Oh, okay. Now, last week, Zerlina, we had black CPS principals who were fired, and now they're filing a lawsuit. How do you feel about the treatment they have received and other black principals at CPS?
I think that they should file the lawsuit, first of all, let's be clear, because 9 out of 10 the principals and the schools that they work at are in our black communities. And we need more black leadership when it comes to our children coming into those buildings, which are supposed to be safe havens and community spaces. So I believe that they should go ahead with the lawsuit, the treatment that a lot of black educators, period, and that goes for principals as well because they're not a part of CTU. They have their own union. I believe that they honestly have not been given a fair deal when it comes to the representation and the support that they get from the parents and the community to help advocate to make sure that we have a voice in retaining them, because the LSC actually is the one who picks the principal. So, and that's the community, the parents, and the teachers that's a part of that process. So, you know, everything needs a democracy, and I think it just has went out the door when it comes to public school, because right now it's like a puppet show. If you don't play nice with someone, then you don't get the job or keep the job that you have worked so hard to have. So it's all, to me, public school has failed the parents and the community.
Do you think they have been blackballed for ever running a Chicago public school ever again?
I believe they're going to have an uphill battle, but you have Troy, which is the principal's union president, Troy Lalafero. I don't want to say his name wrong, but Lavier. He's a great guy. He's going to advocate. He's going to fight for them. He's always stood up when it came to principals. Troy is one of, I know when it comes to me, one of the most respectful and respected individuals when it comes to advocating and making sure that black individuals get what they deserve. So I have all the faith that he'll file the proper paperwork, he'll put his team on it, and that he'll advocate to make sure that those principals get what they deserve, whether it's returning back into those buildings that they were fired or let go from, or placing them someone else. Because remember, there is a shortage. Principals used to be teachers at one point in time. They didn't just come in as principals. They have that background in education. Well, most of them do.
So, Cherish, how do you feel about the difference between public school and private school as a person who did both and as a youth? You see what's going on. You see a shortage of principals and a shortage of teachers. What do you think?
I say even when attending private school in my lower grades elementary school, we still had shortages. We had our science teacher teaching us math. I mean, in private school, there are smaller classes and your teachers are more attentive, but I think everywhere there is a teacher shortage. I think that the more people, the more time you have in a school, the more time you have to build a relationship with your students and have more of an effect. And I believe some of the main differences in just the relationships and time you build with your students and the community and family that you should have in your school, which I do believe private schools do offer.
So the recreational part, the difference between public and private school.
The difference, I would say, when you go in every morning, our office ladies, who we have to walk past every morning, they'll say, "Oh, hi, good morning, Cherish, how are you, yada, yada, yada." There's always a morning conversation. You're never going to walk past any of my school staff specifically, and they're not going to speak or ask you how you are, say, "Hi." It's just attentive. It's very welcoming. Our environment's completely different. It's less tense. I go to an all-girl Catholic school, for one. We're smaller. It's homey. It's roomy. You feel comfortable to be yourself, use your voice. It's a
What
whole
about
different
elementary? I mean, because you did elementary as well. You left
environment. In public.
CPS in, what, second or third grade?
Yeah. From that, I remember having to pee on myself because my teachers wouldn't allow me to go to the bathroom. I think how...
And that was
second
pub-
grade, yeah.
public school?
Yeah. And how I would hide under a desk because teachers were hitting students. And at the time, it's funny because they were just misbehaving, but a teacher was actually hitting a student and not feeling even comfortable to raise my hand and like answer a question.
As a parent, you hear that. What are your thoughts in hearing that someone actually urinated on themselves, even though that was the past? But this
Not
is
someone, your child.
Yeah,
Your child. And the purpose of that happening was because I was the LSC president at the school that she actually attended. We were organizing around a lot of issues at that school at that time, and we got pushback from the principals, and it was just a horrific experience. And that was one of the main reasons why I chose to pull my daughter out of public school, because I became under attack for fighting for teachers' rights. I became under attack for fighting for a better education for not just my child, but all children to have safe spaces. And I had no support from the people that I actually had fought side by side with for many years. I had a DCFS complaint put on me saying that my child was physically and mentally abused. She was doing dishes and taking out trash and sleeping on the floor. But yet and still, I owned my own home in Austin and is a single mother. At the time, they didn't know that my house was fully furnished, that she had her own bedroom. I had a playroom on 2 levels in my house because I was labeled as an activist. I was not labeled as a parent. And when I picked my daughter up and she smelled like urine, all I was thinking was I was going to jail. That's all I was thinking. And by the grace of God, someone had made a statement that middle class people tend to send their children to schools outside of the community. In Austin, we do have an abundance of private schools. I chose not to put my child in a school that was in the city of Chicago because of retaliation. I had already been retaliated for the years of my activism by CPS officials calling DCFS on me, and then my child being mistreated in a CPS school, which I own my home and I pay property taxes to provide these institutions to operate, and for them not to allow her to go to the bathroom. She was potty trained before she could walk, never had an accident. And I had no support. The only support I had was me and Cherish to get to that. And to keep me from going to jail, I pulled her out. because there was no support from the teachers union, who I stood next to, from the grassroots organizations who I stood next to and half of my help co-found. There was no support. No support. And I had never gotten $1 or a sandwich from anybody for the track record that you can Google me and see, when all I cared about was education for all black and brown babies.
When you hear your mom describe what she had to endure and sacrifice for your education, how do you feel?
I feel honored and blessed that I do now attend Trinity. I know how hard it must have been, even from the memories that I do have of it. It still made me feel sad knowing that I had to go through that, and that now that I'm older, knowing what you had to go through. I mean, you were very strong, that's all I must say. But it's still difficult to hear to this day about why that happened to me. I mean, I was in 2nd grade. I didn't know why I was getting treated like that. It was difficult to understand, and even now, as I'm older, I think about it. It's still confusing when you're just trying to go to school and have fun, learn almost, and then, boom, something changes out of nowhere.
Was that experience very traumatic for you?
Traumatic, I would say hurtful. Traumatic is a bit strong. Would you say traumatic?
It happened to you.
I still, in the slightest bit, but you grow, you move on, but it's still a tough pill to swallow thinking about it. It was just hard. That's all I can say on it.
And we were blessed. I mean, the people the most, I protested against private schools and charter schools, thinking that they were going to come in and steal the resources from our community. And yet and still, those institutions were the ones that were more welcoming to me when they heard my story, because a lot of people didn't know what was going on. When I reached out for help from individuals or organizations that had the resources to be able to help me, knowing that I had a false claim, because whenever you see me, you see my daughter, to claim neglect and to have a 6-month DCFS investigation, the only people that came forth that didn't ask me to do anything in return was Village Leadership Academy. Village Leadership Academy, they stepped in. When she came out of Sausalito, that's where she went. The tuition for Village Leadership at the time, I think, was like $1,400 a month, between State Representative LaShawn K. Ford and their leadership over there. Cherish got a scholarship where I only paid like $100 a month for her to go there. A scholarship from that particular school, who now you have CTU, who is in to this so-called fight with all the funding when it comes to giving parents choices to choose schools to send their kids to. When I tell you, the schools that offered my child a scholarship mid-school year did better than the people that I had fought next to with welcoming my child into those institutions. And then coming in, let's be real clear, 2nd grade, and she's on a kindergarten level reading and math coming up out of CPS schools with 35 kids in the building, 36 kids in her classroom at the time. And leaving there a year, she was up to par because it was smaller classrooms.
The head of the CTU is receiving some flack for not entering her children in a public school. Should she be able to give her children the best education, or do you think she's a hypocrite? The reason that I'm saying that is because you're a CTU. You're over an education system. You're supposed to believe in that education system, even though you really don't. So when you basically put your child, and you're the head, and take that child out and put them in a private school, and you're advocating, just like you, black and brown communities for good education, you have a president that's doing the same thing, and people are frowning upon that. What are your thoughts on
You know, as a parent, honestly, and someone who has known Stacy Davis Gates, and who still has some of the best friends that are educators, we can't fault our teachers. Let's be clear. Our teachers are getting what the city and the board hands them. Let's be real clear. But the leadership of CTU has forgotten its path. And when I was a part of fighting alongside of those teachers, it was to make sure that those children had smaller classroom sizes, to help to get clinicians, to get all these things. Dues paying members, with the shortage of teachers across the board in private and public school, you would think that they would be using their resources and time to send out mass hiring for those same programs that she chose to send her child to private school for. I mean, I wouldn't have never thought that my daughter wanted to pick up a tennis racket coming out of the south end of Austin. So when you listen to what her choices were and why she chose, our current mayor had a conversation with me when I asked him for his support in the race that I was running in, and asked me to put my daughter, had I considered putting my daughter back into public school. Why would I do that when it had already turned its back on me years prior, and the same people? So I think she's wrong, because it does not show strong leadership in the individuals, especially the black educators, which is very small and few, that get up every day. Those are your tenured teachers. The black educators need a leader to not just make profound speeches, but lead by hers or his actions. And her taking her black kids out of a school, and she represents teachers that work in the public system, and she was a former librarian as well in the public school system. Me personally, I just think that she should have fought to make sure that those resources came to her child's school.
Cherish, you've been through both public and private school. I want to ask this question because a lot of youth have said there's a difference from a black educator than a white educator in teaching. Can you define that for us?
Sadly, I honestly can't. I don't believe I've ever had a black teacher before.
Village leadership, you didn't have a black teacher?
I mean, second grade, barely. And I mean, well, okay, yeah, Miss Green.
My best friend always tutored you and helped you.
She wasn't my official teacher, but okay, yeah, you are technically right. Miss Green, she was one of our teachers, but her teaching style, it was aggressive also. I mean, she was...
Are you talking about from a black educator's perspective versus a white?
I mean, even from a white perspective, are you asking who's better?
No, I'm not
No.
asking who's better. I'm asking how you did you learn more from a black educator or from a white educator?
Speak the truth.
Honestly, I learned more from a white educator. My science teacher in 7th grade, I spent majority of my time with her, and just talking to her even about school-related things and non-related school things, it helps me figure out a lot of things coming back from the pandemic, and just talking to her about what's going on in my own personal life. She was a big part.
Now, being an young African-American woman, do you feel kind of like neglected when you like get out of that environment and come to where you stay, where you live, and you see the things and the elements that surround you? How do you feel about just getting away, or I need to change some things?
When I leave my community, my neighborhood, I know for a fact my classes are smaller than what others have. I know getting away that I'm surrounded by a totally, completely different group of people and what they experience on a daily. I believe going out to a school outside of my community that I'm allowed for a whole diverse group of people. My school, all the kids come from so many different communities, and you see so many different perspectives every day. And you just think, oh, wow, you come from Forest Park, you come from South Austin, you come from Oak Park, there's Maywood. There's just so many different places, and I think it's a great opportunity to see all of that come together, honestly.
So, but when you leave your community, like, because let's be real clear, we applied for selective enrollment schools as well for Cherish to attend. Cherish first choice for high school was St. Ignatius College Prep. Test in, but then it was still on the table for her to take the actual placement test for CPS selected enrollment schools. Cherish sat there, and I don't even think she spelled her name correctly because she got under a 400. And what was the reason why you told me that test score was so low?
Honestly,
Be honest. We're here for honesty.
I feel like public schools are just ghetto. I just
Really?
I just don't want to go to a public school. I feel like from everything from it to the lunches even, it's just, why?
But if someone on intellectual radio hear this, you know they're going to stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear the stereotypes, and not trying to put you on Front Street,
Put
but
her on front.
however, when you say that, then they would say, what about Westinghouse? What about, I'm drawing a blank. Only thing I can think is Westinghouse right now. I want to say Dupree School. I don't think that's public, though. I don't know. But I really think that, is it an environment, and you can chime in, is it an environment of learning, or is it the parenting of learning? Meaning, what you teach your kids at home and what they teach at school, let's say private, is far different than a parent teaching their children at public schools and what the public schools are teaching their children.
Of course. Her main thing, I think a lot of people, when you say ghetto, because Cherish may be nervous, is the metal detectors. We wanted to go to Michelle Clark. That was the reason why we did selective enrollment. Michelle Clark, let's be clear. And we didn't get in because what her delivery to me was, someone just got shot up there.
Oh, Christ the King.
No, when we were talking about Michelle, yeah, and just the area that we live in, it came out of, I'm assuming, fear. And what I teach her at home, a quality education is what you make it. At the end of the day, if you need help and your parent, like me, I've worked 2 and 3 jobs to make sure that my child keeps a roof over her head. And I'll work 5 to make sure that she gets the education that she deserves. So it's her idea of ghetto. We live in a ghetto. We are ghetto. We're poor. We are the people that I fight for. The only thing makes me different is that I utilize my resources that are out there. I research those things. People will say that Cherish comes off as uppity or out of touch. This child gets in the car with me and she's like, where are we going to eat? We have to leave our community to go grocery shopping or to go to a restaurant. When you can look through the lens of a teenager, any teenager, and they don't want to walk down their own block unless you're with them, that should be a problem. And educational wise, I think that was what gave her that stigma of thinking that public school wasn't going to be for her, because she was scared of getting beat up by the girls because they're fighting out there. And, it was just so much. And I know I might shelter her, but in the same token, as a parent, you want your child to succeed. So we have to support our teachers, whether it's in private or public.
Is that true? Did you
Yeah.
fear for your safety going to Chicago public school?
Yes, when we were deciding what high school I was going to go to, we were thinking about Michelle Clark. And then I was like, well, me and my friends, we love to hang out after school. If I went to Michelle Clark, where are we going to go hang out after? Are there any restaurants to go to? Any libraries that we can go to in walking distance? And it was no. I mean, Michelle Clark has a whole new tennis court. My mom said earlier, I love playing tennis. And the metal detectors, just things that I've seen going on in those schools, the fights, I talk differently. And as my mom said, I come off as uppity. It just feels like I would be a sore thumb, and I wouldn't be the best of fit.
How do you feel when people call you bougie, uppity, and you like a sore thumb? How do you feel about that?
It makes me feel almost worse. So then people try to make me sound like I'm embarrassed of my race, of my culture, which is not the case. Like my mom said, she resourced and gave me those resources, kept me in the rooms, educated rooms with so many people who knew what they were talking about. So I had so many different people to listen to, looking how they talk, how many books, book recommendations just to read. I mean, ooh.
When people, when people criticize her for the way that she talks, even my family, she's not embarrassed. She owns up, and I'm thankful that she can articulate clearly and that she is getting the education that she deserves. I mean, my family calls her whitewash, because of the way she speaks, and I'm like, that's your choice of words. If she can have a conversation with people older than her, she's taking her pre-college courses now. She's doing things that I wish I had the support from my parent to do. I don't sleep at night trying to make sure that we're good. And then you have to deal with constant safety issues in a community that we love and we live in. And just imagine, I cope with my child going out the door, walking on a daily basis by herself, and it's not going to happen. And when I wake up and I'm like, she should be able to catch the bus to school. She should be able to ride her bike to school. But what she would say to me is, are you crazy?
Here's the, if I was listening to intellectual radio, there are thousands and thousands of people that are just like her, but they don't have no other choice, no options, barely no resources like you. What would you say to those parents that looking for a way out to kind of like, okay, I understand what Cherish is going through. I understand because I have a son, I have a daughter that talks like that don't fit in, but they live in a community, and when you fight for education, you don't have no other choice but to go to private.
What I would say to parents is do your research on all the funds that are available out here. Call your state elected official, call your city elected official. If you want private school choice, it's a parent's option. Just do your homework. It's all out there. Black Caucus legislators, they have a grant that they'll assist with paying for education. You have just big brothers, big shoulders, and it's a plethora of money that's out here. We don't qualify for that money, but we advocate for it because I want to see every child get the education they deserve and mainly get out the community that they're afraid to walk in and get a chance to see something different. So as they grow and they mature into the next leaders and fathers in our community, that they will instill a value of I worked to get here. No one handed me anything.
It has been discussed on this show that the black community should open up an accredited black educational system. The reason that I came up with this idea is because we have it with the on a collegiate level with the historically black colleges and university. Why we can't have it at a grammar school level or a middle school level? The reason that I'm saying that is because I specifically said that the black community always have to beat to the white drum. Meaning, what I mean by that is whatever the white institutional educators say this is good for Cherish on a CPS level. This is good for someone like Roman. And we don't live in that community. So if you teach me the new way of fractions, which they have now.
I don't even know that mess.
I mean, you see what I'm saying? But Cherish would know. The reason that I'm saying that is because you have the principals. You have people that are black educators. And what she said earlier, that one was strict, but she learned a lot. The problem and the issue is they're little and far between because they're the biggest question, why we don't have our own middle school, why we don't have our own elementary school. Do you think it's time?
It's been time. It's been time. That's just like a trade school. We need a community hub of black educators, black principals. CTU has a black caucus. You know, you be amazed how many black educators have talked about this, have brought it to the table to put.
Let me stop you there. You said they brought it to the table. But here's the pushback. They're bringing it to the white table.
Of course.
They're not bringing it to the black table. I've mentioned Kanye West. I've mentioned Chance the Rapper. All the millions. Even I disagree with his music. Even Little Durk, who claimed
I love me some Little Durk. So let's go. That's
yeah,
the baby.
Little Durk. All these millions of dollars. Can we open up a Durk Academy?
You know what? Let's be clear. Has someone brought it to him? Because as you stated, we are on the white folks' agenda. You have to look at the puppet masters, but between and on top of us, we. As a parent from CTU, when I came to fruition, a CPS parent who was advocating with Action Now, a parent leader, when we were out there fighting against Rom, the whole narrative was he was a puppet master. So now we just got new puppet masters who are black. Because remember, one thing for sure and one thing for certain is we have the most black elected officials in the state of Illinois governing us in our poverty-stricken, ridden communities. So we can't put the blame on the community, the parents. We have people who get paid to advocate and get the work done for us in our communities. When they did those 50 school closings, you had Emmett that was closed down. You had another school that was closed down in walking distance. When we were trying to fight to bring to the table, you were there. When we were talking about black educational institutions for our children, we have to still go back to the same black people who say that they are for us because they look like us, but don't give us the resources to follow through. They know the education that you have. They know the mindset that you have. They know that black history isn't being taught into school, but yet and still they want our black children to learn a second language, which is Spanish, to be successful and succeed in life. When you think about Black-owned businesses in the Black communities, we don't have a Black Wall Street. We used to, and so they thought about going downtown and sold their community out and then realized they had to come back to that community. We as Black folks have to get together. Black people, let's be clear, us as Black people have to stand together. The older ones, our seasoned, our youth, our middle, people have to come together because everybody not going to agree, but let's agree to disagree to get something for the next generation to come. We do need a Black hub for our children. We do need a Spelman for our young girls. We need a middle school Spelman. We do need a Morehouse for our boys that are ran by men that look like them, who can understand the cultural background that they come from.
You were shaking your head when she said Morehouse.
I love that idea because I want to go to Spelman. I mean, if that was a thing, I'd most definitely want to go there. I mean, that's the whole reason I want to go to Spelman when I go to college, just for that experience, to have all those strong Black males and females and learn from them and hear what they have to say. I mean, just having all of it in one building, I mean, the things you can learn from that, I mean, it's wisdom.
You mentioned school closing. School closing is going to be a topic in the coming months after the new year because of the low enrollment. What are your thoughts on the upcoming school closing? You mentioned some of them that's already closed with the 52 and the low enrollment. Austin High School is on the chopping block for that, and a lot of people are trying to prevent it from being closed. But they only have 100, I think less than 100 people that are currently enrolled at Austin High School.
How many are enrolled in Douglas High School? 32? 33? When you look at our communities, our parents have chose to leave because of violence. Our parents have chose their peace for not just them but their children as well to come home. They have left the community, and the ones that are still there have done like I've done, put our children in private institutions. Sometimes the grass isn't always greener, but I guarantee you one thing for sure and one thing for certain. If we don't start rallying at the table, we will lose Austin. We will lose Douglas to the next school closing. If we can't put trade schools in those buildings, if we can't put something that's more attractive to get our children to go to those schools and stop CPS funneling our kids from out of our communities to other schools, then we will have a closed community school.
Do parents decide to homeschool their children as one of the reasons why we have low enrollment? I want to ask this question to you, Cherish, because there are some people that say, I'd rather be homeschooled before I go to a private or a public school.
I mean, homeschooling, I mean, that was basically COVID. I mean, I think of how I turned out because of COVID for me personally. I think of the gaps in my education that I received from it. I mean, yes, you can think about the, not having to get up every morning, not having a uniform, being able to get your education from your four walls at home. I think that if you have parents who are home, maybe that could work. But if you're home by yourself, you can easily get distracted. And I don't think personally that that'd be the best option for a lot of kids, knowing how attention spans go. But I see why, but I don't think it'd be better than going to in-person school.
Let me rephrase that question to you as a parent. Let's say CPS, what they have done to Cherish, what you mentioned early on in the show, and you do not have those resources, would you basically be open to homeschool?
No.
Why?
Because I believe that school is just like church. They need to go congregate with their peers. They need to be able to interact with their age group on a daily basis to develop that thick skin, whether it's from bullying, because we know that still exists, and whether it's from study groups. I mean, you make your associates and good friends in high school and in elementary school. You make your lifelong friends throughout common goals, and you won't get that sitting at home because you have no one to interact with but a computer screen. That's what's wrong with this generation now. They hold their phones all day. They don't know how to have a conversation with one another. When you ask her a question, she can articulate it over her phone or to me, but even with you asking her questions, how she talks and be evasive, because it's just like AI. It's taught them a new way to project things to stay politically online. Does that kind of make sense? As opposed to being straightforward and giving you from the gut, which is me why a lot of people don't like me, because I come from the gut. But I raised someone who has been stuck on a computer majority of her life. Even though she's been in school interacting with kids, our school programs are everything. They don't have books. Everything is through a computer. The ones that do have books, they have that option to study with their peers, but it's just not the same when I went to school. I'm 46 years old. When I went to school, we walked down the streets together. We laughed, we talked, we sat on the porch, we did our homework, we went in and out of each other's houses. Those days are far and gone.
Your thoughts?
I disagree. I mean, yes, everything from my classes are on computer, but we still have our study groups. We still walk down the streets laughing after school, go study at a restaurant. I mean, I agree that with the AI and the computers, like how you said, you do come from the gun. In our generation, you have learned that anything you say, you can get canceled for it, or you always have to tiptoe around a subject that might feel touchy so that you're not in the wrong.
So she cares if what she says makes someone's happy. I mean, I'm of a mindset that I've lived 46 years and I've been out here. I've been homeless. I've dealt with things that most people hopefully will never have to see. And that's the life that I wanted to provide for my child. So, and I don't make $200,000 a year to pay for private school, as CTU president does. So,
Reading and math scores are pretty much low. They're at a record low. How could you reverse the reading and math scores in the Black community? Your thoughts? Because they're saying that people reading scores have dropped since the pandemic. Math scores have dropped since the pandemic. How can you reverse that?
you want?
Sure, I'll take that. I think having more big brother, more big sister organizations like that come along, I think when organizations donate books, I think there is a huge difference between a book you get at school and a book that you get on your own timing. When you read the book that you get by yourself, you're most likely interested in it. It's not a book about probably history that you don't care about, hence it's school. But when you're with someone your own age, you can talk about it. It's a book that might even relate to your life. You want to read it more. I think I love to read personally. She tells me all the time that my bookshelves are overflowing sometimes. I use it as a way to, one, grow my vocabulary. It's just an imagination.
Yeah, so I think if we as parents, because, a lot of the slack normally comes from what the parenting skills are and what a parent does to assist in their child's education. Most parents are working just to provide basic necessities of life for their children at this point. And when it comes to reading and math, I just think that our children should be taught where they're at and to build up. Most kids aren't built for math or reading. It might not just be for them. Give them a trade. Our country was built on black laborers. Give them something. I mean, reading and math, yes. What would I do to get the score up? I don't know, because every child is on their own level. I don't know how you would say, walk up to someone and say, here's a book, or, blame the teachers or blame the parent. Some children just have more things to deal with. I mean, look at the mental health crisis in our community. Come on, let's be real clear. Some kids might be going to bed without a meal. Some kids might be going to bed without heat. Some kids might be going to bed without just anything.
But you deal with elected officials. You talk to them. You don't think they don't have the finger on the pulse of what's going on that they can take back to Springfield, that they can take back to Washington, D.C., and basically say, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm dealing with. I'm going on this trip. They did it for the migrants. Why they can't do it for us?
Let's shrink our classrooms. I just believe that, if people do more organizing around the real issue, which is getting these teachers the help that they need in their classrooms, shrinking these classrooms to under 16, even 15 cap, they'll be able to give more attention to each individual child. And it all starts from the top. And like you say, I do have those relationships with elected officials. They say one thing and they do another. And the ones that do stick up and say something for us, those be the ones that get put on the chopping block and somebody's running against them. It's like a losing battle when it comes to being black and educating our black babies. It's like if we don't stand together as though every other race does and hold not just Zerlina, the elected officials accountable, that you go out and you vote for them and you have meetings with them. You utilize their offices. When I didn't know what I was going to do with my child before I thought of doing some very scary things to those people about what was going on with my child in that building, I turned to State Representative LaShawn K. Ford. If I did not have him, I don't know what I would have done. He helped me get my child into Village Leadership, a black-led school. That was the best experience that I know I ever had in an educational institution. One of the best. She might not have liked it.
Oh, the parties, the
parties. But it was one of the best for me as a parent, for early education.
The teachers are saying the educational system has failed them.
Teachers?
Teachers. Do you think the educational system have failed black students? The reason that the teachers are saying that, they're teaching from outdated books.
Mm-hmm.
They are teaching with outdated computers at times. Do you think the educational system have failed them?
I just think the leadership priorities are all over the place and need to focus more on what they should be fighting for. I mean, look at Reverend Ackery. Comcast just donated his church, a gang of computers. Are they going to take it up to one of the CPS schools that surrounds that church, or do they even know that he received those computers? Because I only knew about it because it was in an article online. There was no outreach. I mean, you have people, and the teachers should not have to go in their own pocket and spend the money that they work for on buying basic supplies for them to educate our children when we have a budget set aside for that. You cannot blame one person. You have to blame the people who negotiate those contracts for those teachers to make sure that they have better working environments, which is your CTUs. You have to go after the SEIUs who deal with the teachers' aides and all those other individuals that's in that building. That's a collective goal, working together to make sure that no child is left behind that they advocated for. Because every child that's being left behind is graduating and failing in life because they don't have the tools that they need to move forward. They need smaller classroom sizes. They need to bring wood shop back, auto mechanic, basic things. It is so many different things that we can do to uplift our next generation and be supportive as parents, and our elected officials need our help because we do have elected officials that advocate, but where's the community? Where's the community? Congressman Davis said it once before. He takes money from whatever corporations because he know the people that he's working for is not going to donate to his campaign, and he has to win, and he needs the money to win, to run a campaign. Did anybody get mad at that? No. We need to use all our resources and get what our children and our teachers need.
Do you think the educational system have failed black students?
Yes, I do believe that. As you said, the outdated computers, books, and the class sizes. I remember when I was in public school how many kids there were, and I compare it to my private school experience, I mean, that one-on-one time with your teacher, it, like, makes a huge difference, even if that goes to staying after school to get extra help. I'm thinking about my math now. I stayed after school today to get extra help with my math. It makes such a difference. And then when your books are updated, your computers work, yeah, they have been let down. When you're being taught something, you should have everything you need to teach that student efficiently.
We're running out of time. Please give intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station how they can get in contact with you. All the information that you can do, now.
You can reach out to me very easy. My email is zerlina@zerlina.org. Once again, I am a parent, Austin community organizer. I come from the village, Abla Homes. When you look for me, please make sure you have what you need for me, because I'm going to come and help.
Any last words?
You heard her. She's going to do what she needs to do, as always.
All right, that's going to do it for us on the Drive at 5 on the intellectualradio.com. Don't be a stranger. Don't let it stay for like 5 or 6 years. You're more than welcome to come back. Thanks to Earl Winfrey, our executive producer, Wanda, who is behind the scenes. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful week.